listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good, host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Get on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
I can say that there's at least a 80% chance there's nobody I'd rather talk to right now than producer Evan and Sammy of the Play Tessie podcast. You're going to have to prove yourself. Both of you are going to have to prove yourself because we're going to do a Who Says No trade for Sammy's that involves the New York Mets and our resident Mets expert who's just fresh off fanning out at the Fan Fest at Citi Field, producer Evan. He got a new free poster that he's putting in his background. I'm like,
I got it signed by Reed Garrett. It was kind of fun.
Whoa.
I got Reed Garrett and Turk Wendell. Reed Garrett and Turk Wendell.
Wow. So for the people at home, please explain right now. Paint the picture of your background, your backdrop, Evan.
Yeah. So it started with nothing. Then it became
wait. Nothing meaning a literal blank white wall.
Exactly.
All right, go ahead.
Blank white wall. Then I put my Monmouth University diploma up there, which did not really fit the vibe of a sports podcast. So then, under Rob's criticism, I have changed it. I started out with just putting the final season at Shea on one side and the 2008 Mets roster, which is kind of
two fairly small, frame pictures, which you could never ever tell what they are. And now you have
and then I got the amazing day.
An amazing Mets signed by Turk Wendell and Reed Garrett.
Yeah, and I'm like, all due respect to those guys, love those guys. It wasn't like you had a choice of who could sign it. They had a curtain up, and you waited in a line. They told you what line to wait in, and then they opened the curtain, and it could either be David Wright and Francisco Lindor, or it could be Turk Wendell and Reed.
Man, have you ever guys? I saw this clip the other day, the Price is Right clip of the poor woman in the wheelchair who finally gets up on stage.
Yeah,
and her prize that she can win is a treadmill. Did you see that? You haven't seen that?
That's brutal. No, but please send me that.
Yeah, it's. I feel like that's sort of along the lines of what Evan had to do. No disrespect to the people who signed, but there's a big swing. There's a big swing there. All right. Well, as we said, we're doing a Who Says No because everyone's buzzing about Dylan Cease, maybe Michael King, the San Diego Padres being traded. I felt like we have done so many Dylan Cease Who Says No's. Sammy, how many Dylan Cease Who Says No's have you done?
Me personally, I think I've only done, actually, only might not be the right word, 3 maybe?
3.
Yeah.
And there used to be with the White Sox. This is the first one, though, with the Padres.
It makes sense, though. And I'll get into why, but we say we've done so many Dylan Cease. Yeah, as we should. That's a realistic guy to be moved.
Yeah. I tried to, Dylan Cease, who's been on the podcast a couple of times. I tried to get him on to actually be the first time we ever had a player present for their own Who Says No. He's not able to do that. San Diego Padres had their Fan Fest. I don't know, I just call it Fan Fest because I don't know what else to call it. All these teams have been rattling these things off. The Padres, maybe, I don't know if you guys saw how the Padres one was, because 2 years ago, it was insane. It was the biggest Fan Fest. Everyone was jacked up. They had signed Bogarts. It was everything. It was incredible, and it was free, and the entire city was there. I didn't get a sense that maybe that was the case this time, right? I don't know.
Now, all I saw was Manny Machado saying he was disappointed they didn't do anything. That was the main thing that came out.
I mean, the Fan Fest, Sammy, we talked about this on Baseball's and Boring on the radio yesterday, because the Red Sox, obviously, you were at the Fenway Fest, which is the Red Sox Fan Fest. The Red Sox have Truck Day on Monday, and it is such a swing in fan fest. Like this is the vibes of a fan fest, and I'm going to ask Evan how the Mets one is in second. But the vibes of a fan fest tell so much about how people are feeling heading into when pitchers and catchers report in the middle of February, right? Correct?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so what was your take? Let me get your take on the Fenway one that you went to before I get to Evans City Field one.
The vibe check. Well, vibe wise, I don't know if either of you guys have ever watched Curb Your Enthusiasm. Probably. I hope you guys have. The vibe was akin to when Larry David goes, eh. That was basically it. Everyone was like, it's better than last year. We're not completely in the
was
mud.
It wasn't better than last year.
Vibe-wise, it was definitely better than last year vibe-wise, just because Garrett Crochet, big trade had happened. So there was something to look at, some sort of positivity, and they're coming off an 81-win season, not a last-place season. So slightly better, but it's still, the whole time, everyone's just talking about Alex Bregman, the guy who's not there. So Red Sox.
I'm going to say this. So we had Courtney Finicum go to the White Sox one. And maybe we should have Courtney on, and I want to wish Courtney a happy birthday as we tape this. Today's her birthday. But I almost feel like the White Sox Fan Fest was almost a little bit more, I don't know, optimistic is the right word, because it's not like they know they aren't going to win the World Series, but a little more hopeful.
But you got to think, in the year 2025, who are the people going to the White Sox Fan Fest? That is the most hardcore prospect-loving fans in their fan base.
But now that you know how it is, Sammy.
And kids. Yeah.
Yeah, the kids, right?
Yeah.
The Kyle Teals, the Braden Montgomerys, the all the pitches that they got and all the deals. And yeah, so there's definitely like that element of it. I don't know. I would love to do a power ranking of all the fan fests, but unfortunately we don't have correspondence at every single one. Fortunately, we do have one. We did have one at the Mets Fan Fest, Evan.
Yep.
And I mean, don't be swayed by the fact that Turk Wendell gave you an autograph on a piece of paper. How was it? Was it what you expected?
Yeah, no, it was really cool. I mean, I think the one thing that they sometimes neglect with these fan fests is they have like no limit on the amount of people that come in. So everything has a line. Like there's very few things that didn't have a line, but we were able to get like see the locker room and all the other stuff. But the signature autograph, the autograph line was crazy.
So
but
you waited in line, and this isn't a disrespect to the Garrett family or the Wendell family.
Oh yeah, I know.
You waited in a long line to get those two autographs?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because it's like you go to the line and it's actually in like a tent, which is like the players' entrance to Citi Field. They built a tent out of it. So it's like it was a very long line. And then the entire time you're in the line, when the people walk out of the end of the curtains, everybody's like, who did you get? Who did you get? And they're like, well, I got Mark Vientos and this guy, but they're switching them in and out. So you might not get Mark Vientos and this guy.
What? So you can be honest. When you found out like what you had drawn in terms of were you like really
I think it was like one of those situations where it was like, granted, Reed Garrett is not really a big name and I don't think anybody's dying for his signature, but I feel like it could have been worse. Like there were some signatures, no disrespect to Brett Beatty, I love the guy, I don't think anybody
really you wouldn't take Brett Beatty over Reed Garrett?
I don't know, because Reed Garrett became like a big part of our bullpen last year. So that's like the tricky. I don't know.
Weird way to look at it.
Nerdy baseball fan.
That's a bizarre way to look at it. I don't know.
People, like with all the Pete Alonso stuff, which is another big part of the fan fest, and it's kind of like the greed part of the fan fest, right? Because it's like the Mets do all this stuff this offseason. Steve Cohen's like, all right, spent $1 billion, I'm ready to roll, and they're like, so Steve, when's Pete Alonso coming back?
Yeah.
It's like, oh man.
Hey, Reed Garrett, look at this. Reed Garrett, where's the K's? 83 strikeouts in 57 innings.
I'm
not saying he's a bad pitcher. I've talked to Reed Garrett. I have nothing against Reed Garrett, and I'm happy he brought a smile to producer Evan's face.
4 teams in 40 years.
He had no voice. It was crazy. I walked up to him and was like, hey, how's it going? It sounded like you couldn't hear a word he was saying. He's like, I should have given you a baseball isn't boring sticker
to hand to him. Actually, I've already handed one to him, I think, last year. But all right, well, with this perfect segue, the excitement and the anticipation of the Mets season because of Reed Garrett and the memories of Turk Wendell and producer Evan's poster, all of this, and Steve Cohen saying, "Screw you, Pete Alonso," or whatever he said.
The one thing I will say was somebody said they got a Dylan Covey autograph at Amazing and they just DFA'd him. So it could be worse than Reed Garrett.
Dylan Covey is still around. He was on the 23 Sox.
They had every person ever that was part of the Mets organization there, so you could have gotten a
I gotta be honest with you.
All right. It's like when you're
the thing that shocks me about that Dylan Covey was on the 40-man roster for the Mets.
Yeah, well, they signed him early on in the offseason, but he felt like one of those guys, and it turned out to be true that it was like they signed him now, but when they sign, an AJ Minter, another guy, he's gone, and he just got DFA'd. So I could be sitting here with a Dylan Covey autograph.
Well, I'm going to say this, and Sammy can appreciate this. I remember walking down out of Gate D at Fenway Park and walking down, I think it's Van Ness Street, and seeing a Covey Red Sox jersey.
That's insane. That's insane.
That's got to be a friend or family.
I was going to say that has to be a family, or they won it in a raffle and they have no clue who it is, or they had to Google it.
Well, like I said, it's a perfect segue into the excitement of the Mets, and it can be much more exciting if they make this trade that we're about to propose, because I'm going to set the scene for the Mets. Congratulations, you got Juan Soto. Congratulations, you took a very similar approach to your starting pitching that you did last year, with the exception that maybe you allocate a little bit more money for Sean Manaea. Congratulations for that. You've had a good offseason. You're perceived, I don't know what their World Series odds, but certainly perceived as one of the favorites, if for no other reason, because they won last year and they have Juan Soto. But if they pull off this trade that we're about to propose, or pull off the piece, or get the piece of the trade which we're centering this proposal on, then a lot of the conversation changes. A lot of the narrative with the Mets change in a good way. It takes it another level. If we're going to talk about tiers of, not tears, TEARS. You can't talk about tiers. I mean, but tiers, TIERS. You have the Dodgers, right? Yeah. Correct?
Yep.
I got to look this up at World Series odds. You have the Dodgers. I think you right now, tell me if I'm wrong, tier 2 would probably be the Phillies, the Braves, and the Mets.
Yeah.
I don't put the Mets in that tier yet. I'll get into why. This trade would put them in that tier. I put them a notch below. It's mostly because of the rotation.
Well, that's why I say they would get even more excited. All right, well, let's get right to it. So we said, who says no? Who says no trade? The latest iteration, the latest example of how we can get Dylan Cease to yet another organization in what we perceive as a very, very fair trade. Sammy trying to redeem the good name of the Play Tessie podcast after I'll just say it. After their producer, Joe Braverman, this is what you have to understand. You are so sheepish about this, Sammy. Your existence on this podcast, and let's be honest, on your podcast, was born from Who Says No Trades. You take great pride in it. Gordo, Pat, all have been experts at this, the best in the business. For people across the country who are listening to Baseballs and Boring podcast and are unfamiliar with the artists known as Pat or Gordo or Sammy, know that of all the people who do these fake trades, they are the best at what they do. Yet what they did the other day was allow their producer, Joe Braverman, to do a Who Says No. And what we understand, I think what it understands, that Joe is a very nice guy. Joe is a hardworking guy, but when you want to actually do a who says no trade, there's a method to it. There's an expertise to it. There's an acceptance of understanding that you have to be ready for the slings and arrows. But unfortunately, Joe Braverman's proposal for the Red Sox trading for Bo Bichette had more slings and arrows than like 5 Gladiator movies.
It wasn't the best. Put it that way.
No, it was terrible. It was terrible. It was awful.
Let me
love
add,
Joe.
Let me add. We all love Joe. Joe is by far the MVP of our show. We wanted to give him, an opportunity to, because we record so many episodes, we don't want it to get redundant. So we're like, all right, let's switch it up. Let's throw Joe in the mix. And he gave it his best effort. It just wasn't there.
Tell us, in case, because we didn't, before we get to the who says no, for all you young people out there who think that you're ready for the prime time, this is what happens when you aren't ready for the prime time and you go public with a who says no trade proposal. Give it to me.
You want the full one?
I want the full one.
The Joe trade?
The Joe trade.
It was Bo Bichette on an expiring deal.
No, stop right there. The one player going back from the Blue Jays was Bo Bichette on an expiring deal. Let that soak in.
I feel mean doing this.
This is the life that you have to live in this world.
All right. Bo Bichette.
Evan knows this. I've given Evan crap before. I just give him crap about his backdrop. People can give me crap about anything they want. This is the life we live. We all love one another. We're all in this together, but we're also here to make each other better.
All right.
Bo Bichette.
Bo Bichette, who just posted a 71 OPS plus and an OPS below 600 on an expiring deal to Boston. Brace yourself for Vaughn Grissom, Cutter Crawford, Wilyer Abreu, and Yoelin Cespedes, who just broke into the top 100 prospect list.
Top 100 prospect, Wilyer Abreu, who has
4 years of control.
4 years of control, who won a Gold Glove and has the ability offensively to potentially be an all-star. Who are the other guys? Cutter
Vaughn Grissom.
Vaughn Grissom, the guy that you trade for Chris Sale and could potentially be the starting second baseman. And then Cutter Crawford.
Yep, and I believe all 3 of the major league players have 4 years of control. Vaughn Grissom might have 5, but they all have at least 4. And then you have Yoelin Cespedes, who say what you want, he's a top 100 prospect on some lists, which means something. So
this again, the lesson here is that, hey, kids at home, before you jump in the deep end, you better be ready to swim. Okay.
Yeah, I get so much crap on my, like, when I post one of these trades, people just post like, "Oh, what are you thinking? Are you drunk?" I'm like, all right, man, if you don't like the trade, give me a better version.
But you know what? I'm going to take it this way. I think Joe is an evil genius, and he knew this was going to give you content for days. It has already given us content for the last few minutes on this podcast. Thank you, Joe.
I don't know if you've seen our video clips lately, but he keeps like ratcheting up the comedy that he puts into them, and they're like, he's cooking. They're good.
Well, speaking of cooking, we're going to do now the who says no trade for the one for Dylan Cease going to the Mets. It's been rumored that potentially the Mets have interest. Evan, how am I imagining that? There's been rumors, right?
No, John Heyman and I think Pat Ragazzo has been reporting on a ton of different stuff. They both said that, like, Michael King and Cease, but since Michael King signed the like arbitration, getting him away.
Yeah, he's got another year.
Yeah, so that makes, I guess,
mutual option,
which makes Cease more likely, I think. So,
all right,
yeah, it's so okay. Evan, can you give me just in your vision, what is the Mets rotation going to be in order 1 through 5, roughly? Doesn't have to be perfect.
So I think it would be Manaea would be the ace, either him or Senga. So 1-2 would be Manaea, Senga. Then 3, I imagine, would be
Clay Holmes,
Montes or Clay Holmes.
Yeah,
it's Montes, Clay Holmes, and Peterson. Those are the 5, but I just don't know exactly the order. I'd say probably Holmes, then Peterson, then Montes, maybe.
Okay,
yeah.
So this is why I thought the Mets kind of makes sense for Dylan Cease, because they went out there and they got Juan Soto for $10 billion or whatever that was. And then the rotation looks good 2, 3, 4, 5. It feels like they're still lacking that number 1 guy. And that's why I don't want to put them in that tier with like the Dodgers and Braves. So Here's my trade. Getting closer to spring trading, teams that are looking to cut costs, they start taking on more pressure. Clock is ticking. And that's a good thing for teams who care about winning, like the Mets. So here's the trade. The Mets are acquiring Dylan Cease and relief pitcher Robert Suarez, and the Padres are getting infield prospect Jet Williams. So here's why I think that makes sense. Mets are adding the top of the rotation arm in Dylan Cease. He's coming off another strong season, 189.1 innings, 224 Ks, 3.47 ERA. He's kind of becoming one of the more underrated pitchers in baseball somehow. I guess it's playing on the White Sox and then smaller market San Diego, but I digress. And here's the kicker. The Mets are also acquiring Robert Suarez, who he's still productive, but he's due $10 million in 2025. Then he has a player option, which if he takes it, it's 2 years, $16 million. It's not the most expensive contract ever, especially nowadays. Fairly affordable, I'd even argue. But for a team that's cutting costs like the Padres, I don't think they want to be paying a guy like Suarez that kind of money, especially since Jason Adams is on their team and he's undeniably a better relief pitcher, probably their closer. So in return, the Padres are getting just Jet Williams, who I think looks a lot like Chet Hanks. Agree or disagree with that? 58th overall prospect on Baseball America. So he's a top 100 guy, but he's not like that elite class. Still very good. And I think the Padres would want a guy like that because they have a pretty good farm system, but most of their top guys are like 18, 19 years old. So they're not ready for a while. Jet Williams looks pretty close to being ready for 2025. He did get dinged up last year, played 121 minor league games, but he looked really good. So this trade, it bolsters the Padres farm system, which it seems like that's what they want to do, save some money. And then the Mets, they move into that A tier of contenders. They now have Dylan Cease atop the rotation, and they get a big bullpen arm in Robert Suarez. So, and by the way, the contracts, Cease 1 year deal, $13.75 million. So he's a free agent after this season. That's super important in this trade. And I already went over Suarez's contract. So quickly, $10 million 2025, player opt out. If he opts in, it's another 2 years and $16 million. So Cease and Suarez to the Mets, Jet Williams to the Padres. Who says no?
All right. Well, the guy who would know better than anybody is sitting right there with 3 random photos behind his head. What do you got? What do you got, Evan? Who says no?
I mean, I think that would be a solid trade for both sides. The only question that I would have, I mean, it makes sense strictly because they said that like the Padres, the asking price for Cease is obviously higher than King, even before the King extension. But the only thing is I know that the Mets, based on what I've seen, they value Williams and Sprott like 10 times more than literally anybody else in their system. So, I mean, he's close to Major League ready, which I think if the Padres aren't trying to spend money, like he could probably slide into either short or second, depending on where Bogarts ends up going. And he could be their opening day guy because he's like pretty much ready. He was hurt last year, which made his value come down a little bit, but he's super solid. So I would say it would be agreed upon on both sides, in my opinion. But I would the only thing I would wonder is if the Padres are giving up those 2 guys. I know we had Brian Bannister on, and he was talking about how like some teams, I mean, granted, it's definitely a philosophy thing, but like they sometimes view like I'd rather get 4 guys and have 4 chances than just 1 chance. So if that's the case, then maybe they want to take on, Acuna and a couple other guys like that. But otherwise, if it's just they want to just do 1 for 2, I mean, I think both sides would say yes.
Why do you think that Suarez is needed in this trade?
Suarez is needed in the trade because he's a middle, not a middle reliever, like a setup man who makes kind of closer-ish money. And the Padres are a smaller market team. They had this little window where they spent like crazy, and now they're kind of running that back. So if you can get a guy like Jet Williams into your system and you're offloading that money from Suarez, I think the Padres would like to do that. The bad part is you also lose Dylan Cease, but he's on a 1 year deal. So unless the Padres are like, we're winning the World Series, might as well get something for him.
Let me ask you this, and I guess, Evan, you can answer. Jet Williams. So you look at, well, what's more valuable for the Mets? Is it Jet Williams or is it Dylan Cease? Like, who's playing second for them coming up?
So based on how it's right now, it would be Jeff McNeil. And then they have the Beatties and Ronnie Mauricios of the world that I think would, like, it all kind of hinges on Pete Alonso, honestly. Because like if he comes back, then McNeil stays at second, Lindor stays at short, Vientos stays at third, and that's your infield. So then Jet Williams would kind of be stuck behind them. But if Pete Alonso goes elsewhere and they move Vientos to first, then everybody's going to be competing for the third base job. So then Jet Williams might end up having more.
Well,
of a
yeah, that's what I'm just
Yeah.
saying. Like because how much the Mets? Yes, they're all in now, but how much are they viewing sort of Jet Williams as he's going to be? We have to keep some controllable players who are going to be foundational players around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like they've said David Stearns. I mean, at least in Milwaukee too, but they've said even in New York, as he's kind of shown this offseason, he's not a fan of giving pitchers long-term deals, especially if they're on the wrong side of 30. So, and also considering Cease is a Boris client, I don't know if he'd be like, is Robert Suarez for a couple years and Cease for 1 year good enough for me to get rid of this guy, or do I want a pitcher that at least has 2 years? And that's why he was going after like a Crochet type. So that's the one kind of question.
So I looked
It's so
at
strange to me. That's strange to me that like the Met, and I agree with you, Evan. You're probably right, but it's so strange that the Mets, who have such deep pockets, if they get a guy on an expiring deal like Cease, in my head, I'm like, give him 5 extra years. Why would you not do that? What would possibly? And I know Stearns is the reason I have the Mets trading hitting prospects, not pitching prospects. I can't fathom him doing that. So I did think about the kind of like Oakland A's style trade that they always do, where they get 4 or 5 prospects instead of one elite one. But just figured in this scenario, if you want a horse like Cease and then another guy like Suarez, who I know Padres want to get rid of his money, he's still a good pitcher. So I don't know. I think the best the Mets can do is Jet Williams, and I know he's arguably their number one prospect, but he's not even in the top 50 overall. The Mets don't have a terrible farm. They just don't have anything super special right now. So I don't know. It felt right doing Williams for those 2 arms.
I will say this. I'm just looking at the odds heading in. We talk about the different tiers. Obviously, Dodgers. So these are the World Series winning odds right now. Dodgers at plus 250. Obviously, the runaway favorite. It's not even close. Yankees are next at plus 750. Next are the Braves at plus 900. Next are the Phillies at plus 1,100, and then the Mets at plus 1,200. So I was on the trolley. Well, certainly when it came to the National League, and the Yankees deserve to be up there too. I mean, we sleep on the Yankees, but they had sort of a under the radar Dodgers. We're gonna keep moving forward. Off season, you know what I'm saying?
They did the best they could do after missing out on Soto.
Right. Well, you have that's the lesson. You have these 2 World Series winning teams who may have arguably done the most, overall. I think.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of the funny thing also about the MLB offseason, especially with the Yankees, is I think their fans are kind of like discounting it a little bit now and being like, really, we're going to leave third baseman open for competition? But it's like, they had like a solid week or month where they were like the only team going crazy. So it's like just because the MLB offseason is long doesn't mean you didn't have a really good offseason, because I think they shored up spots. Like, Rizzo was injury prone and barely played. They get Goldschmidt, who, if he can have anything like he's had in the past, is great. Bellinger is probably going to be your center fielder, so you can move Judge out of center field, which was kind of probably become a problem in a year or two. You get.
Oh, it was a problem for them. It was definitely a problem for them. We all saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have Devin Williams and you have Max Fried.
Yeah.
It's how can, and you can say what you want about Garrett Cole's inability to cover first base. He's still an elite pitcher. So
he's an elite pitcher for now. Wasn't his elbow barking at some point? I don't want anyone to get hurt, obviously, but I feel like it has.
I think he's okay. Yeah, at some point. Yeah, last year it took him a while to come in. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, believe it or not, I'm a Red Sox fan, of course, but I actually like when the Yankees are good. It makes things more interesting for me as a fan. I need someone to hate.
I think one of the things that people sleep on when it comes to the Yankees, at least on paper, is how awesome the end of their bullpen has become. Yeah. I mean, Luke Weaver was so good, and that last representation of him wasn't him. They had worn him into the ground. They had nowhere else to go. But he was just dominant, and then you get Devin Williams. Holy mackerel!
They really should bring back Tim Hill. I feel like that wonky lefty coming out of the bullpen just makes it such a nightmare for the other manager to just knowing that guy's out there. And if you have a Rafael Devers in the lineup, he's just gonna stick a fork in it with that guy. The
funny thing is that I had heard people praise the Yankees, and I'm forgetting his name, but the head of developing pitching. Basically, one of the guys that was responsible for guys like Luke Weaver, and he's gone to the Mets now.
Desi Driscoll.
Yes, Desi. That's right, Desi.
Desi.
Yeah,
what a name.
There you go.
It's one of those moves where it was like when he first came over, it was like, oh, who's this guy? And then it's like oh,
people love Desi.
Yeah,
people love Desi. He's the most popular Desi since Desi Arnaz.
So Evan, wait, I want to go back to the trade. Cease just turned 29. I feel like. I'm just thinking about the extension. How could you not?
You don't have to sell Dylan Cease on these airwaves.
No, I know. I'm trying to sell the idea of what's his name, Stearns being into the idea.
Yeah, no, I'm open to it. I just know that based on like the Mets reporters, especially Will Salmon and even Andy Martino, they've just said like Stearns is kind of set on not paying pitchers like so far beyond their 30s. He just feels like it's a badass. And it's like they'll seemingly pay any hitter whatever they want. Like
that's what I was gonna say. Like
20-year deal, but if it's a pitcher, it seems like he's kind of like I'd rather wait.
Right.
I'd rather wait for the next guy to like a Garrett Crochet to come on the board or something.
It feels from the outside looking in, it feels like the Mets have two front offices. One handles hitting, one handles pitching, and they operate drastically differently. It's bizarre to me. I would go all in on pitching if I were the Mets. Beat the Dodgers. Imagine the views. Mets, Dodgers, Clash of the Titans, but now it's like Dodgers and then the Mets line up, and then here comes Kodai Senga with one leg. I don't know.
Yeah, Kodai. It's like it was. What is the thing where it's the two different people, Jekyll and Hyde with Kodai? Yeah. Because it's like if you want to go into next year and be like he's going to be first year Kodai Senga, you're like crap. That's a great thing. If you want to go into next year and be like he's going to be like when he came back into the playoffs, it's like all right,
one-legged
immediately.
Yeah, one-legged. Yeah.
I'll say this about Dylan Cease though. Like I think that his personality would play in New York. I do. Yeah. I think he's an eclectic guy, but he's not a guy who's going to be like I don't think he would get too rattled by being in New York.
Yeah. I so badly want Dylan Cease to somehow wind up on the Red Sox just for the content alone.
Oh, I should pull up his poem. What am I doing? Keep talking.
We gotta bring the disc golf to City Field. There you go.
Yeah. I was thinking, how big is City Field? I think it's a pretty big field, right? Like mid-size field dimensions.
When I was at Amazing Day, that scoreboard is just absurd. Because they made it like double the size that it was before because they just made everything into panels so they have like no advertising around it. So it's
beautiful.
All right. So here's the poem. Obviously, let's see. Oh no, don't tell me I can't pull it up. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to be able to pull it up. I think it was deleted. Anyway, he wrote a poem about baseball. It's incredible because he wrote the poem "Oh Slider Slide," which obviously he was in the book A Damn Near Perfect Game. He read to the White Sox teammates all the time, and then had Dylan Cease on and said, "Hey, we'd like to write a poem about baseball not being boring." And literally 10 minutes after I hung up the podcast, he had something in my inbox. He's a really, really smart guy, man. Really smart guy. And like you said, Evan, there has to be this year. We were going to do it last year. There has to be a disc golf tournament at a ballpark. How this doesn't happen is crazy to me. So and he's the in case people don't know, he is the be all end all when it comes to the trying to promote the sport of disc golf. He makes courses all over the country. And we were very, very close to having one at Fenway Park, like a 3-holer, something like that. So,
there you go.
So how'd I do? Did I redeem the name? Play Tessie, or do we need the listeners to weigh in?
I almost want to do what would be the Joe Braverman equivalent of the Dylan Cease who says no.
Come on, leave the guy alone.
No, man. Like I said, you gotta be willing to. You swim in the deep end. You gotta take off the floaties.
True. You should see the comments I get. Now I get comments on all of our stuff. People asking me if I'm old because the other guys on Play Tessie call me old for being like 14 months older than them.
Well, you're old and wise because this was a good one. You did well. I'm here to build you up.
Thank you.
Same thing. If Joe Braverman, if I get a chance to talk to him, I'll say that was stupid, terrible. Who says no? But now it's about building you up, much like I did for producer Evan. I said, Evan, your backdrop is crap. It's awful, but let's start building it up. And here, next thing you know, you have an autograph of a Turk Wendell and Reed Garrett. So, see, it's science.
And I have a mattress and a sunflower. Beautiful.
Next up, Justin Hageman signing next week.
Well, you what?
No, the guy from the Red Sox, Justin Hageman.
Hageman, yeah.
40 man, so maybe he's
wow. All right, let's go. Let's go. What do you have? A mattress and a sunflower?
I have a mattress. I have a sunflower, which I really don't know how we got that, and then some things on the wall. I got Brady and Gronk.
I feel like mattress and sunflower is like code for something.
Yeah, you got the mattress and sunflower,
yeah,
bro?
yeah. All right, good job, guys. Good job, Sammy. Good job, Evan. All right.